Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
What's up? What's up? Ian, what's up, buddy? Happy, what's today? Monday? Today's Monday.
Yeah.
Happy Monday.
Isn't that the definition of success? You don't know what day of the week it is?
I typically, I know weekends pretty well, but weekends.
Well, you got the kids. You got the kids thing going on.
Yeah, they're all the same, but it's a good point. It's a good point. I look forward to Mondays personally. It's a day that I can really accomplish a lot of stuff. I typically get backed up on stuff between Friday afternoon into the weekends. Leads are coming through, deals are coming through, things like that. And I like Mondays because it keeps me on the grind, ready to go.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I try not to think about what day of the week it is. I feel like every day you should just live and do what you need to do. Everyone's like, oh, it's Friday. What do you got going on this weekend? And it's like, that makes me feel like I have a job, right? Like versus just saying, I don't know what day of the week it is half the time. And yeah, on the weekends, I guess, because, kids and we all have kids, sports, dance, whatever else, it makes it a little more defined of what we're doing or not doing. But I could see both sides of it.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm trying to share.
All right. Well, happy Monday to you.
Yeah.
That's where we started. Happy Monday, man. Lots been going on over the last few weeks. I know you were on the road. You've been grinding, had the opportunity to look at a lot of your facilities, a lot of your buildings throughout the country. How many airplanes were you on?
Oh my God. Let's see. I went from Baltimore to New Orleans to Alabama to Mississippi to back down to Baton Rouge out to Salt Lake, and Salt Lake back to Baltimore. So it was one heck of a grind, but it was fun. It's all worth it,
I can't even count them. I did one nonstop flight to Florida, one nonstop flight back. Yeah. Nice and simple. Nice and simple. But that's good. That's good. That's good. So you want to talk about some of the things that you did out of town? You want to talk about some local stuff?
I think most people know that we're pretty transparent. And I've been working through something over the past week. For those of you who don't know, Dan and I, my business partner, we were both firemen full-time for the city of Baltimore. And last Monday, unfortunately, 3 people that we were very close with or worked with, we both worked directly with everybody that was involved, were killed in a fire. We got on the plane, we went out, did our thing, got back, did the funeral this past week. And, one of the biggest things that's really resonated with me over this past week is really, what would happen at your funeral? I spent some time. I was talking to my wife and I said, who would show up to my funeral? What would people say? And I know a lot of people talk about like when they're planning their life or they're trying to plan for the future, they say, write your eulogy. And that really never resonated with me till this past week of like, who would show up? What people would say? What would it look like? Would anyone even show up? And I know these are all like stupid rhetorical questions, but in the same sense, you really do have to ask yourself, what would that look like? And ultimately, really what it gets you down to is, are you living the life that you want to live, the direction that you want to go? And for me over the past week, it really showed that, did I make the right decision? And it reinforced a lot of things for us that we've done over the past few months. And everyone knows right here on this podcast, we discussed us leaving our W-2 jobs and the struggle that we were having in real time. But I just wanted to get back up on here and talk to everybody and, work through exactly what we were working through. I know it's kind of a hard topic and hopefully it's coming across correctly. But I was talking to Jay about it, and I said, I think we need to fire the mics up and jump on here and discuss this with our audience because this is a real thing. I don't know if you've ever spent the time and really conceptualized what your funeral could potentially look like.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with this topic and what you're discussing is the end game in mind. And I don't think the point of this topic or the point of this in general is, hey, drop everything and live your best life, right? Live it to the full potential. Most people are not in a place in their life that they can just drop everything. and do it. Forget being scared. It's just not realistic. That being said, everybody is in a position that they could take big progressive action to get to that spot, right? They could have a 2-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, a 20-year goal, right? But the point is you got to work in order to get to that, in that position, right? Not many people live their best life on a day-to-day basis, and that's okay. But I think it's important that what you're doing is stepping stones to live to your full potential.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like here's the other question behind that is that like if you're not living a life that's fulfilling to you, why aren't you doing anything that's changing it?
Okay, I agree, and the changing thing is right, but you can't just go from like I'm here right now and I want to be here. Like that doesn't happen overnight. But what can happen is you're here right now, and every day you're taking a step forward, right? Hey, I bought my first rental property. Hey, I got home at 5 o'clock every night, or whatever it is, or I saved an extra $1,000 every month, whatever that particular case is, until you hit that goal. And let's be honest, there's no end game. There's no end goal because that's changing. The way you feel in your 20s is different than who you want to be in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and your 70s. And what is important to you now is might change. And that's okay. And I think that's the scary thing about retirement, goals, end game, living your full potential, like those terms. Like I think people think that those terms can't be changed. You lock them down, you put them in a vault, and that's what it is. Things change all the time. What you wanted 10 years ago is different than what you want today.
Well, we were witnessing that in real time, and I think sometimes, unfortunately, it takes a shakeup like that. You know, in the corporate world, it might be a merger or an acquisition or something along those lines that are like, it's a life-changing event that happens, and people are like, oh my God, what was I doing with my life over the past several years? And look, the job that we worked, a lot of us, all we ever wanted to do since we were kids was go be a fireman. And, you know, the conversation a lot over the past few days was like, man, I put this job up on this pedestal, but now I'm like, I don't know if that's the job that I want anymore. But then there's this identity crisis to even change their careers, right? Like, and so when we're talking about live your life to your potential, you know, like living out your dream job, sure, that's one thing. The question is, do you have aspirations? It's okay to change in this time frame. And I think a lot of people are struggling with that. And it's real now what happened for a lot of people in the job to say, okay, you know, I lived my dream job, number one, check. Now I think I want to do something different, but they're scared to go do that different thing. And it is scared to jump out on that limb. I mean, we just did it in real time, and it was scary as hell. But you know what? Doing everything in baby steps leading up to that is ultimately that what paid off. I was talking to one of my classmates, and we were BSing, and he's like, I watched you guys grind little property after little property. You know, started with landscaping, then it was your first property, your second property. And he's like, now look at you. And I was like trying to remain, you know, humble because I don't do well with compliments. But it was like, yeah, man, you never realized like all those little steps that you took to take action to make change. And those things stack up and they add, right? Like what's that old saying, you know, you do your big rocks first and then you put all your little pebbles in around the box and other rocks and you can fill up your bucket so much quicker. I didn't realize all those things were going on. And now all of a sudden, when you look back, you're like, holy crap, man, we did a lot to set ourselves up in the right direction.
And that's a good example with a lot of things that people don't realize. People don't realize the hard work, working 24/7 every day when you're starting a business and just grinding through the hard parts and the things you don't want to do. I mean, everyone looks at, you know, a famous, famous business owners and companies that sell for $100 million. And it's like, oh man, they sold for $100 million in 10 years. It's like, well, guess what? They worked 100 years worth of work hours in those 10 years in order to sell it. And that's what happens. And I know regarding your last topic, you know, you used being a firefighter as an example. Well, that's the case of a lot of things, right? Like in the business side of things, right? Like we can use that example of firefighters. Let's just use like a real life business owner situation, right? You're grinding, you're going through the motions. You get to a point, you wake up one day and it's like, you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore, right? Like the purpose of doing it was to make money, right? And then maybe you made a good amount of money, and it says, you know what? No amount of money in the world will allow me, will put me back into where I'm at right now. I want to pivot to other things. There's so many people in so many industries that over time, as you grow, as you get older, as you put things in perspective, as you have kids, whatever the case is, change. You want different things. I mean, I know a lot of people that have become very successful and sold their companies, and they sold their babies, their company, because it's just like, this wasn't the direction I wanted to go in anymore. I got bored with it. I didn't want to do this anymore. And they moved on to something that was more impactful for them.
Yeah, let's use real estate as an example. We've all done it. Dan started wholesaling. I started with rental properties. We both said, we want to try something different. And we made that pivot. Yeah, it's inside the same asset class. So then we went and flipped houses. Then we realized that wasn't going to be the long-term trajectory. We pivoted back into single family, and we've continued to outgrow those. It doesn't mean we're not real estate investors anymore. It just means that we've pivoted to take the best opportunity for what we need at that time. And, whether you're looking at this from being in a W-2 job and trying to exit into real estate full time, or go do something different, a totally different career path, that's okay. But also another thing is, if you're in real estate and you're only wholesaling or you're only doing flips and you want to pivot into rental properties, go ahead and make that leap, man, because you don't want to get to the end of your career. And I think that's, like you said earlier in this conversation, the point of this podcast is, you don't want to get to your deathbed and be sitting there going, damn, I wish I did a rental property, or damn, I wish I did that, right? Like, make the pivot, do what you need to do now, get your things in order and go for it. Terry, our good friend that we always like to talk about, I know you're probably out there watching, but one of our buddies walked up to us and I said, hey, Lieutenant, I was glad to see you retired. It was really unexpected. He goes, yeah, I was listening to one of your podcasts and you're like, yo, bet on yourself. Like, just go bet on yourself. And he's like, you know what? I had enough that day. I had a good crabbing business, and the guy, he does commercial crabbing. He's like, I had a good commercial crabbing business at the point. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go bet on myself. And it made us feel good that all the content that we're putting out, that people are resonating with it. But, if Terry never told that to me and I wasn't thinking about that, I would have never said it here, ultimately not being able to help that guy right there go and make the best career choice of his life after the fire department for him and move on. So it's just really interesting to see how all these things are working together, and how all the different, not just real estate investors, but business owners or people who are trying to be successful. Even if you are an employee, it's okay to be a successful employee. Everyone has goals that they're trying to achieve, and it's been really interesting to see. And unfortunately, it took this to bring everyone together. However, it was great to see everyone and hear, feel, see, and talk about all these different ideas.
How do you think you could play the game of life if you played it with the ends? You start at the end and then you work backwards, right? Like, think about that. It's the same thing. They talk about that in golf as well. If you go play a golf hole backwards, or if you go stand at the edge of the green and you walk all the way backwards, you see it completely different from a different view than if you play it from the tee box. And it's the same thing with this, right? You start with the end in mind and say, when I'm 100 years old, and this is like kind of how you started this, Ian. If I'm 100 years old and, I'm at my own funeral, and what I want people to say about me, right? You start with that. Now lead backwards of where you want to be. Okay, well, at 90, are you on pace? On 80, are you doing what you can? At 70, 60, 50, 40, all the way. So many people don't think about the end until, they have some sort of wake-up call. Either they have a health issue, or a family member gets sick, or a good friend of theirs gets sick. Things like that happen. And we've all seen this from when you turn 20. When you're 20, you think you're invincible, right? And then you turn 30 and you're like, hey, I'm going to turn into a little bit more of an adult when you're 30. And then when you turn 40, it's like, listen, I've spent, I've been grinding, I'm working hard. I finally have like a good nest egg. That snowballs to grow and grow and grow. And, I haven't turned 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 yet, so I don't know what's going to happen. But the point is, start with the end in mind and work backwards, and you can see things a hell of a lot clearer.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And guys, don't let Jason make it sound so goddamn easy, because believe me, it was a struggle. Jason's just a few years ahead of us in business, and he's like, "Oh, you'll be fine in a few years." I'm like, no, dude, like you don't understand. The end of the world's coming. Like we're not going to survive. He's like, "Yo, dude, you'll be fine," because he's lived it, right? But it's so hard to see in the future. It's also harder to take advice from people that have been there. As much as everyone says, "Oh yeah, just use other people's experiences," you definitely need to get punched in the face first to figure out what those experiences are. But man, I totally agree that if you have the wherewithal to be able to plan backwards, it makes life a lot easier.
Well, think about it. When you're doing deals in general, and I mean, we all typically look up to people who have been there in the past, and not that we don't look up to people lateral or people that have not reached that have not put in their tenure yet. But the point is how many times, and as you get older, you learn from this, because like we've talked about, when you're 20 and you're 30, it's different. And let's say you're in your late 20s and you're grinding as a real estate investor, and a 40-year-old or 50-year-old says, "Hey, listen, I've been through an economic downturn before. I've been through a recession. You might want to do this." And you say, "Oh, I'm not doing that. Like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I know he's successful, but I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to prove everybody wrong." You're going to get punched in the teeth, and that's fine. I don't exactly know what the saying is, but the one time that you think you have everything figured out is the one time you get freaking sucker punched. Because that's what it is. Like, you always have to be kind of one step ahead and on the grind and open-minded. And like you said, you got to be humble. Like, you can't take it for granted. Stuff changes. Nobody's seen, a pandemic before. There's so many things that change, and none of us know it all. We're all gonna do our best with the information that was provided, and we'd all be a sucker if we weren't involved in mastermind groups and had mentors and had coaches and had people that were ahead of us to give us advice. And again, you're there for advice. It's your job to take all that advice and mix and match it together to make informative decisions to the best of your ability. But you do got to get advice from everybody, as many people as possible. And then you noodle that out in your head to figure out what makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's not going to be a super long episode, but I do want to leave everyone with something, and kind of just to what Jason was saying, is that you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So if you're new to the real estate game, or even you're an experienced real estate investor, utilize your eyes and ears before you go and say something. Try to learn what other people are doing. Again, people do have other experiences. Sometimes you do need to get punched in the face for you to actually learn them yourself. But in the same sense, if you can learn just one thing by watching, seeing, feeling, touching what other people are doing, that will go a super long way for you and hopefully save you a lot of money when you are trying to invest in real estate.
And I'll tell you, what scares me a little bit about a lot of real estate investors right now, and I might be wrong about this, but what scares me is that a lot of real estate investors got into the game a few years ago, and they've only seen good things happen, right? They've only seen the upside. They might not have bought a good deal, but they ended up selling it for above market value. And because of that, they think that's the norm, and they got positive feedback. I'm almost done this book, Annie Duke's book, Thinking in Bets. Highly recommend it. It's a good book, and it has a lot to do with that. She's a poker player, and she talks about all the time that there's a lot of people that don't realize they're making the wrong decisions, but they've gotten lucky, and those decisions have paid off for them, and they credit themselves as a success, that it worked out for them. But and then all of a sudden, when they haven't had success, they call it unlucky, because the first few go-arounds they had success with it. And she relates it to a poker hand, but she does a lot of speaking with CEOs and business owners and stuff like that. And I was thinking through that, and that's what a lot of real estate investors do. There's a lot of real estate investors that haven't been in the game long enough, and they've had some success, and they think that's going to continue. And they're only, what's the best way to state this? They're only like data sample is, oh, I did these 5 deals, and this is how I did them, and they're going to work out fine. And now I can go find another deal similar to this. So the point is I'm not stating to scare anybody, but you I don't know the best way to state it besides kind of be careful and, make informative decisions, continue to learn. Don't pretend you know everything just because you did 5 successful deals. Obviously keep doing them. Action's more important than only educating yourself, but take action and educate yourself kind of at the same time so you don't ever have a downfall.
Yeah, and I would say my closing remarks to all of that is, man, if you're even doubting, thinking you want to do something else, get out there, go do it, go try whatever you're looking to do, whether it's getting your pilot's license, it's going to invest in real estate, it's accelerating your own career by promoting or trying to get that next position that you're trying to go for, but you've always been too afraid to go do it. Dude, you don't know when the lights are getting turned off. They could be turned off tomorrow, man. Get out there and go do it. If it's something you've always wanted to do, don't let anybody stop you, and go and try and do it. And know that, God forbid, your light switch is turned off tomorrow, that you've done everything in your willpower to try and do that one thing, and live your life to the fullest. And I want to kind of end it on that note because I want to keep it pretty on topic, because to me this is a very important topic and not enough people take the time to even conceptualize this. But we're going to do another episode later on this week that will go over some of the other fun things we've been doing over the past few weeks.
Yeah, good closing remarks. One other thing, Ian and I are going to start doing the show a little bit more in person with guests. We have a lot of interviews lined up for the next few weeks and months, which is going to be great. I'm going to change my camera angles so you can actually see what our new studio looks like.
Yep.
Hang on with me real quick. So what's up, everybody? New studio that we have. Ian's supposed to be sitting right next to me. He's at his office right now, but we've got a ton of spots for anyone who wants to get interviewed, who thinks they have some things to share with the group. Feel free to reach out to us at Hard Money. What's our podcast name? Real Estate Reserve Podcast.com.
Yeah.
Go to realestatereservepodcast.com. Fill that out. Love to interview you, have you on the show if we feel you're the right fit for it. So go to realestatereservepodcast.com and we'll do a live interview with you. So got some good guests coming in.
Yeah, man. I look forward to it.
All right, man.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too.